Sunset in Monterey Park was always special. The sun was slowly sinking behind the hills, coloring the sky shades of orange and red. I'd been watching from the terrace of my house for 32 years. Every day, weather and business permitting, I sat in a chair with a glass of whiskey and watched the day slip away from the horizon. Today, this habit seemed especially important. My name is Killian Brooks. I'm 67 years old, and I've spent the last 30 of those years building and growing Brooks Transit Solutions, a logistics company that started with one shabby truck and my crazy dream. Now I have a fleet of 42 trucks, 3 terminals, and a staff of 123 people. We haul freight all over the West Coast, from San Diego to Seattle. In this business, I know every road, every turn, every stop. This morning, before I left for a meeting with the terminal managers, I found a blood stain on my shirt. At first, I thought I had cut myself shaving, but there was too much blood and it was coming from inside. I silently wiped it off, put on a fresh shirt, and drove to work as if nothing had happened. But it wasn't the first time this had happened in the last month. After taking one last sip of whiskey, I went back into the house. On the wall hung a picture of Helen, my late wife. She had died 15 years ago from an aneurysm, suddenly, without warning. We had breakfast together in the morning, and in the evening I returned to an empty house. Sometimes I think I died a little bit that day, too. After Helen died, my son and I never got along. Ezra was always closer to his mother. She understood his creative nature, his desire for beauty. I saw him only as a successor to the work I'd spent my life building. I insisted he study business, learn from my mistakes. He resisted. We fought. In the end, he chose financial analysis, something I considered unworthy of a real man. Now he works for some investment firm in Los Angeles, wears $2,000 suits, and looks at me like a relic of the past. The phone vibrated. It was the secretary. "Mr. Brooks, did you remember your appointment with the doctor tomorrow?" "No, Doris. 10 o'clock in the morning, I remember." "Shall I cancel your appointments?" "Yes, please. And Doris, don't tell anyone where I'm going." "Of course, Mr. Brooks." I hung up the phone and looked at the wall where pictures of the company's development hung. The first truck was an old Ford I'd bought with my savings and a small loan. The first office, a room the size of a closet. First employees, 2 drivers who believed in me. First terminal, a former warehouse on the outskirts of town that I rented for nothing. And a photo of the opening of the 3rd terminal, a modern complex with an automated loading and unloading system. In it, I'm standing next to Ezra and his wife Nell, all smiles for the press. Fake smiles. Nell came into our lives 7 years ago. A tall blonde with a flawless smile and cold eyes. A realtor at a high-end real estate agency. She sold Ezra his first apartment and then his heart. I never told my son what I thought of his choices. He wouldn't have listened anyway. But something about her always made me wary. Maybe it was the way her gaze quickly switched from her ostensible interest in my company stories to her smartphone as soon as Ezra looked away. Or the way she appraised the house on every visit, as if estimating its value. I poured myself another whiskey and sat back in my chair. Tomorrow I was going to find out why I'd been coughing up blood for the past few weeks. Dr. Frost had been my doctor for 20 years. He knew me, my medical history, and my dislike of medical facilities. When I walked into his office, he knew it was serious. "Killian, what's wrong?" "Blood, Alan. When I cough. And sometimes just like that." He examined me, sent me for urgent tests and a CT scan. 3 hours later, he had all the results, and his face said more than words. "Pancreatic cancer, Killian. Stage 4. Metastasized to the liver and lungs." "How long?" 6 months, maybe 8 with aggressive therapy. I was looking out the window of his office. Out there in the parking lot, a driver was trying to park a car that was too big in too small a space. It looked ridiculous and pointless, like so many things in life. What are the options? We can try chemotherapy. There are experimental treatments. Chances? Minimal. With stage 4 and such extensive metastases. I nodded. We both knew what that meant. Thank you for your honesty, Alan. Are you going to tell the family? Why? Ezra doesn't care. He visits me 3 times a year. Thanksgiving, Christmas, and my birthday. And every time, he can't wait to leave. What about your employees, the company? They'll do fine. Hayden's a good COO. Alan shook his head. Killian, you can't just... I can, Alan. This is my life and my death. When I left the clinic, I didn't go home. I headed for the company office, a large glass building on the outskirts of Monterey Park. The security guard nodded at me, and the elevator took me to the top floor. My secretary Doris looked at me questioningly, but I just shook my head. In my office, I closed the door and went to the window. The main terminal was spread out below, with dozens of trucks bearing the Brooks Transit logo loading and unloading. Drivers, loaders, operators, everyone knew their job. The system I'd been building for years worked like clockwork. I had created something real, something important, and now all I had to do was watch it all fade into oblivion. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. In the mail was a letter from Tobias Ramsey, CEO of Pacific Freight Systems. They'd tried to buy my company twice before, but I'd refused. Now the situation has changed. I responded to the letter, scheduling a meeting for the next day. When I returned home that evening, I found Ezra's car in the driveway, a late-model black Mercedes. It was unusual. Christmas was still 2 months away, my birthday 4. They were sitting in the living room, Ezra in a perfectly fitting suit and Nell in a dress that probably cost as much as my driver's monthly salary. They stood up at the sight of me, feigning joy. "Dad!" Ezra came over and awkwardly hugged me. "We thought we'd stop by and check on you." Nell smiled, her signature smile white and lifeless. "Killian, you look tired. Tough day?" "Just a normal day." I went to the bar and poured myself a whiskey. "Would you like a drink?" "No thanks," Ezra replied. "We have to get back to town." I sat back in my chair and looked at them. "So, to what do I owe this unexpected visit?" "Do we need an excuse to visit you?" Ezra tried to feign offense. "Usually we do." Nell put her hand on her husband's shoulder. "We're just worried about you, Killian. Ezra says you've been working so hard lately, the company won't run itself." "That's what we wanted to talk to you about." Ezra stepped forward. "Dad, you're 67 years old. Maybe it's time to think about, handing over control?" "Oh, that's it." I sipped my whiskey and looked at my son. "To whom?" "Well, there are professional managers. Or you could sell the company." I grinned. "And who are you suggesting I sell it to?" "Pacific Freight made you an offer. Twice. Are you following my business negotiations?" "I'm in the industry, Dad. People talk." Nell smiled again. "Killian, we just want you to be able to enjoy a well-deserved vacation. Travel. Relax." "Do I look like the kind of person who likes to vacation?" "No." Ezra sighed. "You look like a man who would drive himself into the grave with work. If only he knew how close to the truth he was." "I'll think about what you said." "You will?" He sounded surprised. "Yes. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to rest. As you've rightly pointed out, I've been working hard." They stood up, exchanging glances that didn't bode well. "Sure, Dad. We'll stop by this weekend and bring lunch. There's no need to worry." "It's not worry," Nell said with feigned concern. "It's family." When they left, I stared at the closed door for a long time. Family. It was ironic. 15 years of Ezra barely finding time for a phone call, and suddenly such concern. Something told me this wasn't about my health or well-being. I took another sip of whiskey and looked at Helen's picture. "What would you do if you were me, dear?" The photograph was silent, but I knew the answer. Helen had always been a pragmatist. She would say, "Do what's right for you, not them." I decided not to tell them about the illness. No reason to give them an excuse for fake sympathy. Perhaps for the first time in years, I felt grateful that our relationship had been so cold. They didn't notice any changes in my behavior or appearance. They just didn't pay enough attention to me. Tomorrow I'll meet with Tobias Ramsey and begin the process of selling the company. But Ezra and Nell won't know about it. At least not yet. I drank the rest of my whiskey and went up to the bedroom. I needed a good night's sleep before tomorrow. There was a difficult period ahead, and I intended to get through it on my own terms. The Pacific Freight Systems office was located in a glass tower in downtown Los Angeles. I parked my Cadillac in the underground parking lot and went up to the 37th floor. The receptionist, a young woman with perfect posture, ushered me into a conference room with a panoramic view of the city. Tobias Ramsey was waiting for me. He was a tall man in his 50s with graying dark hair and a keen eye. Next to him sat two others, Edwin Price, the CFO, and Abigail Thorne, the company lawyer. "Killian!" Tobias stood up and shook my hand. "To be honest, I wasn't expecting your call. After our last meeting, I was sure you would never sell the company." "Circumstances change," I said, sitting down across from him. "May I ask what exactly has changed?" Edwin Price adjusted his glasses. "I wasn't going to tell them about my illness. It might have affected the price." I decided it was time to move on. 67 is old enough to think about changing priorities. Tobias smiled. "And where do you plan to move on to, if it's no secret?" "I haven't decided yet. Travel, perhaps." "That's a wonderful idea," Abigail nodded. "We're all working too hard." "So," Tobias folded his hands on the table, "last time we offered $7 million. Given the market and your company's position, that's still a fair price." I grinned. In the last 2 years, we'd increased our fleet by 8 trucks, opened a new terminal in Sacramento, and signed 3 major contracts with technology companies. $7 million was a fair price back then. Now, I'm thinking of a figure closer to 11. Edwin whistled. "That's ambitious." "It's realistic," I countered. "If you want, we can do an independent evaluation." Tobias and Edwin looked at each other. "Let's not be too hasty," Tobias said. "We have our own estimates of your company's value. Abigail, can you show me?" The lawyer opened a folder and handed me several sheets of figures and graphs. They valued my fleet of 42 trucks, 3 terminals, contracts, and customer base. According to their calculations, the fair value was $8,500,000. "Does that appraisal take into account all the assets?" I asked, looking at the documents. "Absolutely everything," Edwin nodded. "We didn't even deduct the loan on the Sacramento terminal. I knew they had undervalued some of the assets, especially the real estate. But I didn't have the time or energy to bargain on a level playing field. 6 months of life is not a time when you can afford protracted negotiations. $9 million, I said firmly. "That's my final price." $8,700, Tobias didn't give up. "9, I repeated. "And I want the deal closed within a week." "A week?" Abigail looked surprised. "Usually, these processes take months." "You already have all the necessary documents. I'll provide the rest within 2 days." Tobias looked at me carefully. "Is something going on, Killian? Why are you in such a hurry?" "I'm not in a hurry. I just don't see the point in delaying the inevitable." After a pause, Tobias nodded. "All right, $9 million. But I want you to stay on as a consultant for 3 months after the deal closes, to ensure a smooth transition. 3 months. Half the time I have left, but I had no choice." "I agree, but I have one condition. No one except those in this room can know about the sale until it's officially announced, especially not my son." Tobias raised an eyebrow. "An unusual request, but we can honor it." "When do you plan to make the announcement?" "After the integration is complete, 2 or 3 months from now." "That's great." We shook hands and Abigail began preparing the preliminary documents. I looked out over the city through the conference room's huge window. Somewhere down there was Ezra's office. I wondered what he'd say when he found out I'd just sold the company. He'd probably accuse me of not consulting him, of not offering him a stake in the management, as if he'd ever been interested in my business. 2 hours later, I left the building with a folder of preliminary documents. Now I had to set up an account that would receive the money and make sure Ezra couldn't get his hands on it after I was dead. I visited 3 banks the next day before I settled on First Pacific. Their branch was far enough away from my home and office that I wouldn't accidentally run into someone I knew. I opened an account in my name, but with an extra layer of verification. Mr. Brooks, the manager, a man in his 40s with a neat beard, spoke quietly and professionally. This account will be completely confidential. No one but you will be able to access it without a special code. And if something happens to me, then the person you entrust with the code will be able to access it, but only if they present a death certificate and undergo additional verification. It got me thinking, who could I trust with a code like that? Ezra was a no-go. I didn't have any close friends. Work took up all my time. Doris, perhaps? My secretary had been with me for 25 years, but even with her, I wasn't really close. I'll think about it, I told the manager. In the meantime, let only I have access. As I left the bank, I got a message on my phone from Ezra. Dad, Nell and I want to stop by tonight. We have something important to discuss. Again? 2 visits in a week is more than I'd had in the last 6 months. I responded with a short, okay, and drove to the office. At the company, everything went on as usual. No one knew they would have a new owner in a week. Doris brought me coffee and a schedule of appointments. Mr. Brooks, how was your doctor's appointment? Everything okay? Yes, Doris. Just a routine checkup. She smiled with relief. 25 years she's learned to sense my moods. Hayden's waiting for you in the conference room. The third quarter report is ready. Hayden Cross has been my COO for the past 7 years. Young, ambitious, but with the right approach to business. If I had more time, I would have considered selling the company to him, but that wasn't possible now. He wouldn't have the funds. The meeting went as usual. The numbers were good. Profits were up 12% over last year. Hayden offered some ideas for optimizing routes and reducing fuel costs. Great job, I said, closing the report folder. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Hayden looked pleased. By the way, I hear Pacific Freight is interested in our company again. I tensed up. Where'd that come from? The market's full of rumors. They're supposedly collecting data on our assets. Don't pay attention. It's just competitive intelligence. Hayden nodded, but there was a look of concern in his eyes. You're not planning to sell the company, are you? We're just starting to implement a new growth strategy. No, I lied. No sale. I went back to my office and sat down at my desk. On the computer screen, I opened a file with a description of all the company's assets. Fleet value, $3,200,000. Real estate, $4,800,000. Contracts and goodwill, about $2 million. That's about $10 million, minus debts and taxes, about $9 net. I really could have gotten more if I'd bargained harder. But what's the point now? $9 million. A sum that could have changed my life if I'd had more time. The trips I'd told Tobias about. Maybe a luxury home somewhere on the coast. All the things I couldn't afford while I was building the business. But the main thing now wasn't how to spend the money. It was how to protect it from Ezra and Nell. I wasn't going to leave them a dime. Not after all the years of neglect. Not after their fake concern that came as soon as they smelled the possibility of selling the company. I opened a new tab on my browser and started searching for information about trusts and wills. I needed to find a way to dispose of the money so that it would go to something worthwhile. Maybe a scholarship fund for underprivileged kids, or funding for startups in logistics. Something that would leave a mark after I was gone. In the evening, I got home early to prepare for Ezra and Nell's visit. The fridge was almost empty. I rarely cooked for myself. I usually ate lunch at a restaurant near the office and ate whatever I could find for dinner. Today, I ordered a delivery from an Italian restaurant, lasagna and a bottle of good red wine. Not that I planned to have dinner with them, but I had to give the appearance of normalcy. They arrived at 7 sharp. This time, Nell was in a more subdued outfit, a dark blue dress and minimal jewelry. Ezra looked more serious than usual, too. "Dad," he shook my hand instead of hugging me. "Thanks for agreeing to meet me. This is your home, Ezra. You can always come over." We walked through to the living room. I offered them wine, but they declined. "We wanted to talk to you about something important," Ezra began. "I know you've always been independent, but—" "We're worried about your health, Killian," Nell interrupted him. "You look tired, and Ezra says you've been canceling company meetings lately." "Do you have spies in my office?" I looked at my son. "No, Dad. It's just people talking. You're a prominent figure in the industry." "I'm fine." "You are?" Nell leaned forward. "Then why were you at the clinic last Tuesday?" I froze. "How did they know?" "Were you following me?" "We just happened to see you." Ezra shrugged. "A colleague of mine was doing a checkup there and spotted you." A lie. I knew it was a lie. The clinic was 30 miles from his office. "Just a routine checkup. It's normal at my age." "What did the doctor say?" Nell insisted. "That I'm healthier than a lot of 40-year-olds. They looked at each other. I could see they didn't believe it." "Dad, we think you should take a vacation. Maybe even consider a less active role in the company." "Like I said, the company's not going to run itself." "There's Hayden," Ezra countered. "He's a good COO. He could take on more responsibilities." "How do you know about Hayden?" Ezra was confused. "He, made inquiries after our last conversation." "Why?" "Because we're worried," Nell exclaimed. "We want to help." I leaned back in my chair and looked at them. "Are you worried about my health or the company?" "You, of course," Ezra looked offended. "You're my father." "I wonder why this excitement is only showing up now, after 15 years of you barely taking the time to call." "People change, Dad. I've grown up. I've realized that family comes first." How convenient that realization came just as the company was reaching peak value. Nell went pale. "Are you accusing us of self-interest?" "I'm just pointing out a coincidence." Ezra stood up. "You know what? I'm trying to have a relationship and you turn everything into a fight. You always do." "I didn't start any fight, Ezra. I was just asking why you're suddenly so interested in my health and my company." "Because we're family," he was almost shouting. "And because I can see that you're not coping. The company is too big for one person, especially at your age." "I've been coping for the last 30 years. I'll continue to manage." Nell put her hand on her husband's shoulder. "Ezra, calm down. We just wanted to offer to help." "What kind of help?" I asked. "Are you going to quit your job and go into logistics?" "No, but I could help with financial planning, tax optimization, selling the company," I interrupted. He stopped talking. "If you decide to sell, yes, I could help you find the best buyer." "Do you already have someone in mind?" "As a matter of fact, I do." Ezra looked pleased. "Pacific Freight isn't the only option. There's Global Logistics and Western Cargo. They might have more to offer, so that's it. He's already negotiating behind my back." "Thank you for your concern, Ezra, but I'll decide what to do with the company." "Dad, please don't be so stubborn. You always do things your own way without consulting anyone. This is my company. I created it. And what happens to it when you retire? Or if, something unexpected happens? Like what?" Well, sickness, or something else." I looked at him. There was no genuine concern in his eyes, just calculation. "Don't worry about it. I've got it under control." Nell changed tactics. "Killian, we just want you to rest, see a good doctor. Take care of yourself." "I take care of myself, Nell. That's all I've ever done all my life." They left after half an hour, disgruntled and disappointed. I heard them arguing as they got into the car. Something about my stubbornness and the need to move faster. I closed the door and leaned my back against it. I was sure now they were up to something. Perhaps they were planning to have me declared incompetent, or just waiting for my health to fail me so they could take control of the company. Either way, they're out of luck. In a week, the company would be gone and the money would be safely stashed away. I smiled at the thought and went to the kitchen. I had to eat. Tomorrow was a big day. I had to send the last of the documents to Tobias and meet with the lawyer to discuss setting up the trust. I wondered what Ezra and Nell would do when they found out they were too late. That the company has already been sold and they won't get the money. Maybe they'll finally show their true colors. And I'll be ready for it. I walked out of the bank building feeling both satisfied and tired at the same time. The deal with Pacific Freight Systems had been finalized. $9 million, the price of 30 years of my life, was now sitting in an account that no one knew about. The signing took almost 3 hours, with Pacifica's lawyers double-checking every comma, as if they were afraid I'd change my mind at the last minute. Tobias shook my hand after the formalities were completed. "Are you sure you want to keep the deal a secret?" he asked. "We usually do a press release as soon as we sign." "I'm sure," I replied. "Just give me time to take care of my personal business." He nodded, though there was a look of confusion in his eyes. Businessmen like us rarely hide successful deals. Usually they brag about them every chance they get. But my situation was special. Sitting behind the wheel, I felt weakness coming on. I'd been having more frequent episodes the last few days. Dr. Frost had prescribed painkillers, but I tried to take them only as a last resort. I didn't want to cloud my judgment until I was done with my business. The drive home took almost an hour, caught in traffic on the highway. When I finally parked in front of my house, I could barely move. The pain in my stomach became unbearable. I struggled to get to the front door, unlocked it, and literally collapsed on the living room couch. There was a packet of pills on the coffee table. I swallowed one, drinking water from the carafe. The doctor had warned me that they made me drowsy, but I didn't care right now. I just wanted the pain to stop. I don't know how long I was half asleep. The pain gradually receded, replaced by numbness. My consciousness swam. Images from the past flashed before my eyes. My first truck, Ezra's birth, Helen's laughter, the opening of Terminal 3. 30 years of my life became a blurry kaleidoscope of memories. I woke up to the sound of voices. Someone was in the house. I tried to get up, but my body wouldn't listen. The medication was still working. The voices came from the kitchen. One belonged to Ezra, the other to Nell. I didn't remember giving them keys, but maybe Ezra still had a copy from when he'd lived here. "We can't wait any longer," Nell said. Her voice was muffled but distinct. "Did you see him today? He's barely on his feet." "I know," Ezra replied, "but we can't hurry. If we act too soon, he'll get suspicious and change his will." "What if we're too late? What if he sells the company before we can get the guardianship in place?" "Guardianship? What are they talking about?" "He won't," Ezra said firmly. "I talked to Hayden this morning. There's no sign of a sale. All the contracts are up, no meetings with potential buyers. So Hayden's working for Ezra now. I wonder how much he was paid for his information." "But you said yourself Pacific Freight is interested in the company again." "Interested, yes, but we're a long way from a deal. Apparently, Dad's not even returning their calls. If I could, I'd laugh. Poor Ezra. Doesn't know he's a whole week late." "Then we need to speed things up with the medical evaluation," Nell said. "I spoke to Dr. Whitmore. He's willing to examine your father and give an opinion that he's incapacitated." "Are you sure he'll agree? Dad looks sick, but he's clearly lucid." "Of course he'll do it. For $5,000 he'll write whatever he needs to write. And Judge Burns is a friend of my father's. He'll sign the custody decree without question. So that's what they're doing. Declare me incompetent so they can take control of my assets. Classic move." "And then what?" Ezra asked. When we get custody. Then it's simple. You, as legal guardian, sell the company. My client at Global Logistics is still interested. They're offering $10 million. And the father? What about Dad? There's no way he can argue with that. We'll find him a place at Sunset Valley. It's a cheap nursing home on the outskirts of town. Ezra sounded unsure. Exactly. Why waste money on a luxury facility? He wouldn't appreciate the difference in his condition anyway. The main thing is that it has basic medical care, and we can use the difference in cost for our plans. I lay there paralyzed not so much by the medication as by what I'd heard. My own son and his wife were planning to take away my freedom, sell my company, and send me to a cheap nursing home to die, not even realizing I was already terminally ill. I don't know, Nell. Ezra hesitated. Maybe we should look for a better place. He is my father, after all. A father who never supported you, who didn't think your career was worthy of a real man, who didn't even come to our wedding because he had an important client meeting. I was at your wedding, I wanted to shout. I sat in the third row and applauded when you exchanged vows. And I postponed the meeting because I lost a big contract. But of course, I couldn't say it. I could only listen as Nell continued to poison my son's mind. He never thought about you, Ezra, only about his company. Now it's our turn to think about ourselves. With $10 million, we can buy that house in Malibu you've been dreaming of. We can travel without counting money, maybe even have a baby. We're already making a good income, Ezra argued. Why do we need a baby? You said yourself you didn't want to spoil your figure. That was an example, dear. I'm talking about opportunities, the freedom of choice that money gives you. There was a pause. I could almost see Ezra hesitating, his conscience wrestling with greed. When do you want to start? He finally asked. Immediately. I've already prepared all the paperwork. All I need is Dr. Whitmore's signature and your statement to the court. What if my father resists? He can't. As soon as the judge signs the judgment, it goes into effect. The police will help us if we need it. Do you think it'll come to that? I hope not. But we have to be prepared for anything. You've seen how stubborn he is. There's another pause. Then Ezra's voice, quiet and uncertain. What if he's really sick? I mean, really sick? All the more reason to act quickly, before he does something stupid with the will or the company. You're right, I always am. I heard the sound of a kiss, then footsteps. Let's go check on him, Nell said. The car's in the driveway, so he's home. I closed my eyes quickly, pretending to be asleep. I heard them come into the living room. Look, Nell whispered. He's unconscious. No, he's just sleeping, Ezra replied. See how his chest is rising? I felt someone leaning over me. The smell of Nell's perfume was heavy, vanilla. What are those pills? She asked me. I don't know. Some kind of medicine. Look at the label. Pause. Strong painkiller. Prescribed by Dr. Frost 2 days ago. See? I told you he was sick. We have to hurry. Yeah, you're right. Their footsteps receded. I heard the front door slam, then the car engine start. When the sound finally died down, I opened my eyes and sat up slowly. I was dizzy, but I could feel the effects of the drug wearing off. So this is what they decided to do. Take away my freedom, steal my company, and send me to a cheap nursing home to die. All under the guise of caring for my health. I stood up, staggered, and walked to the kitchen. I needed a drink of water and to collect my thoughts. There was a piece of paper on the table. Apparently they'd forgotten it in their haste. I picked it up and began to read it. It was an application to the court to declare me incompetent due to progressive dementia. My strange business decisions, forgetfulness, and inadequate behavior were cited as evidence. All of this, of course, was a lie. But with a doctor's signature and the backing of a corrupt judge, it could have worked. Luckily, they were too late. The company had already been sold. The money was in the account, and I was meeting with a lawyer tomorrow to set up a trust and a new will. But now I had to act even faster before they could put their plan into action. I picked up the phone and dialed Doris's number. "Mr. Brooks?" Her voice sounded concerned. "Is everything all right?" "Yes, Doris. I just wanted to let you know I won't be in the office tomorrow. And if my son calls, tell him I'm away on business and won't be available for a few days." "Of course, Mr. Brooks. Anything else?" "Yeah. Write down my phone number." I dictated my lawyer's number to her. "If anything happens, call that number. That's my lawyer." What could happen? I could hear the worry in her voice. "It's nothing. It's just a precaution." After I talked to Doris, I sat down at my computer and started looking up information about the procedure for declaring a person incompetent. I needed to know what I was dealing with. It turned out that the process is quite complicated and usually takes several weeks, but with a corrupt doctor and judge, it could be expedited. I had no doubt Nell would use all her connections. The phone rang. Ezra's number. I decided to answer it to see how far they'd go. "Yeah? Dad?" His voice sounded fake happy. "How are you? Nell and I stopped by this afternoon, but you were asleep. We didn't want to wake you. I took some medicine for my headache. It makes you sleepy." "Headache? Does it happen a lot?" "Sometimes. It's nothing serious. Maybe you should see a doctor. Nell has a friend who's a very good specialist. I bet he's the same Dr. Whitmore who'd write up anything you need for $5,000. "Thank you, but I have my own doctor, Dr. Frost." "Of course you do. Just making a suggestion." Pause. I could almost hear him picking his words. "Dad," Nell and I were thinking, "maybe you should take a vacation. Take some time off. We could help out with the company while you're gone." "I don't need to. I've got everything under control." "But you look tired. And those meds—" I interrupted him. "Ezra, I appreciate your concern." "I do. But I'm doing fine. If I need help, I'll come to you." "Okay, Dad. Whatever you say." Another pause. "Nell and I wanted to invite you to dinner this Friday night. Will you come?" "I'll be busy Friday. Maybe some other time." "Busy doing what?" He couldn't hide his disappointment. "A business meeting." "Friday night?" "Business doesn't have a weekend, Ezra. You should know that," he sighed. "Of course, Dad. Another time, then." We said goodbye, and I hung up. They were clearly in a hurry to put their plan into action. The dinner on Friday was probably a trap. Maybe this Dr. Whitmore was supposed to be there to assess my condition. I felt the onset of pain again, this time stronger than before. I had to take another pill. As I sat on the couch waiting for the medicine to take effect, I thought about how quickly things had changed. A month ago, I was a healthy man, the owner of a successful company, with plans for the future. Now I was terminally ill, had sold my life's work, and found out that my only son was planning to take away my freedom for money. But there was one advantage to this grim situation. I knew their plans and they didn't know mine. I had managed to sell the company before they got custody. Now I had to protect the money and the time I had left. Tomorrow I'll meet with an attorney and draw up a new will. Ezra and Nell won't get a dime. I'll set up a trust to handle my funds however I want. And then I'll figure out how to let them know what I've decided. Maybe I should wait until they act before I strike back. The medicine was starting to take effect. The pain was receding, and with it the clarity of thought. But before I fell asleep, I had time to think. It was a good thing I hadn't told them about the sale of the company. It was the only right thing to do in a series of mistakes. The morning began with another bout of pain. I struggled to get out of bed, swallowed a pill, and stood under the hot shower for a long time, trying to collect my thoughts. Today was the day to meet with a lawyer and begin the process of protecting my assets from Ezra and Nell. After yesterday's overheard conversation, there was no doubt about it, they only saw me as a source of money. The law firm of Goldstein, Harper and Associates was located in downtown Los Angeles, just a few blocks from Pacific Freight's office. I deliberately chose a lawyer I had never worked with before. I didn't want Ezra to be able to reach him through mutual acquaintances. Samuel Goldstein was a man in his 60s with a shrewd eye and a neat gray beard. His office was finished in dark wood and leather, a classic style that inspired confidence. "Mr. Brooks," he shook my hand. "Please have a seat. What can I do for you?" I sat down in the deep leather chair and looked at the lawyer. "I need to rewrite my will and set up a trust, and I need it done as soon as possible." Goldstein nodded, showing no surprise. "Of course, but first I have to ask a few questions. It's standard procedure." "Ask away." "Are you acting voluntarily? No one is pressuring you?" "Absolutely voluntarily." "Do you understand the consequences of your actions?" "Completely." "Are there any medical reasons that may affect your ability to make decisions?" I hesitated. Should I tell him about the cancer? It could complicate the process if Ezra tried to contest the will. On the other hand, without full information, Goldstein wouldn't be able to protect my interests. "I've been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 4, but I'm of sound mind and good judgment." His eyes have softened. "I'm sorry, Mr. Brooks. It does complicate things. The relatives may try to contest the will, claiming that the illness affected your judgment. That's why I'm here. My son and his wife plan to declare me incapacitated and gain control of my assets. I found out about it by accident, overhearing their conversation. I told him about Ezra and Nell's plan, about the corrupt doctor and the judge." Goldstein listened intently, taking notes. "The situation is serious," he said when I was done, "but it's solvable. First, we need to get an independent medical opinion on your competency. I have contacts of several respected psychiatrists who can conduct the examination." "How urgent is that?" "Very urgent. If your son has already started the process, we don't have much time." "Then go ahead. What else?" "We need to set up a trust with protection from creditors and lawsuits. This will protect your assets even if the court declares you incompetent. The key is to appoint a trustee to administer the trust." It got me thinking. Who could I trust with my money? "Could I appoint you?" "Sure. It's a common practice, but I would recommend appointing one more person for extra control. I don't have any close friends or relatives I can trust." Goldstein nodded. "In that case, we can appoint a second trustee from our firm, my partner, Elizabeth Harper. She specializes in just this kind of case." "Okay. What about the will?" That's easier. You can dispose of your assets however you want. Who would you like to leave your assets to?" "I've already thought about that. I'd like to use part of it to create a scholarship fund for underprivileged kids who want to study logistics and transportation management. The rest is for pancreatic cancer research." "No personal beneficiaries?" "None. Especially emphasize that my son Ezra Brooks and his wife Nell Brooks are excluded as heirs." Goldstein wrote down my wishes. "Good. Now for your assets. What exactly do you need to protect?" $9 million in an account at First Pacific. That's the money from the sale of my logistics company." "The sale?" Goldstein raised an eyebrow. "I thought you still owned the company." "No. I sold it a week ago to Pacific Freight Systems. My son doesn't know about it." "Oh, I see. That makes things a lot easier. Is the money already in your account?" "Yes, good. We'll set up an irrevocable trust and transfer the funds to his account. Once the money is in the trust, neither your son nor the court can access it. You, as the beneficiary, can use it as you see fit." "How quickly can we do this?" "The paperwork will be ready by tomorrow morning. If the psychiatrist can do the evaluation today, we'll close all legal loopholes." "What can I expect my son to do when he finds out?" Goldstein thought for a moment. "He'll probably try to challenge the trust and will in court. He'll claim that you were incapacitated or under the influence. But if we do this right, he won't stand a chance." "What if he does get me declared incompetent?" "Even then, the trust will protect your assets." Sure, you'd lose your discretion, but the money would remain safe. And when you die, it will be distributed according to your wishes. I nodded. It was a good plan. Proceed. And bill me personally for my services, not the company. I don't want a paper trail. Of course, Mr. Brooks. One more thing. I'd recommend you move temporarily. If your son really plans on getting custody, he may try to restrict your movements. I hadn't thought of that. Where do you suggest we move? We have clients who provide safe housing in these situations, completely confidential. Sounds like a witness protection program. Goldstein smiled. In a way it is. A lot of wealthy people face similar problems. The industry is simply responding to demand. After meeting with Goldstein, I went to a clinic he recommended. Dr. Rosenthal, an elderly psychiatrist with kind eyes, did a complete evaluation of my mental state. Tests, questions, memory, and logic exercises. After 2 hours, he gave his verdict. Mr. Brooks, you are completely competent. I see no signs of dementia or other cognitive impairment. Your thinking is clear. Your memory is in excellent condition for your age. Thank you, doctor. I'll need a written report. Of course. It'll be ready in an hour. I'll send a copy to your attorney. I returned home that evening feeling better, despite the fatigue and occasional bouts of pain. The plan was beginning to take shape. Tomorrow the money would be in the trust, the will would be rewritten, and there would be nothing Ezra and Nell could do. I turned on the TV and made myself dinner, a simple sandwich and a glass of whiskey. My appetite was almost gone lately. Dr. Frost had warned me that was one of the symptoms. The phone rang. Nell. Killian, good evening. Her voice sounded sweet as molasses. How are you feeling? Fine, Nell. To what do I owe the pleasure? Ezra and I are worried about you. You canceled dinner Friday night and we were wondering. Maybe you just don't want to leave the house. We could come to you. That won't be necessary. I have a really important meeting. At the office? Friday night? Not exactly. A private meeting. Oh, she sounded curious. May I ask with whom? I'm afraid it's confidential. Pause. Killian, Ezra, and I have noticed some, changes in your behavior. You've become more withdrawn. You've been taking medication. We just want to make sure you're okay. I'm fine, Nell, but thank you for your concern. Maybe you should see a doctor. I know a specialist. I have my own doctor, and he says I'm in great shape for my age. Of course, she sounded unconvinced. Just know that we're always here for you. I appreciate that. I'll see you then? Saturday, maybe? Maybe. I'll call if I'm free. I hung up and grinned. They were obviously in a hurry. I wondered if they'd already filed a court application. Or are they waiting for their corrupt doctor's report? The next morning, I met with Goldstein again. He'd prepared all the paperwork, trust, new will, power of attorney in case of incapacity. Everything's ready, Mr. Brooks. All we need is your consent to transfer the funds to the trust. I went through the documents. Everything was exactly as we discussed. An irrevocable trust with protection from creditors and lawsuits. I, as beneficiary, could use the funds during my lifetime, and upon my death, they'd be distributed according to my wishes. Goldstein and his partner Elizabeth Harper were appointed as trustees. Signed. I signed each document. Good. Now we have to go to the bank to process the transfer. At First Pacific, we were met by the same manager who opened my account. Mr. Brooks, good to see you again. What can I do for you? I'd like to transfer some funds into a trust. The procedure took about an hour. The manager checked the paperwork. We filled out the necessary forms, and finally the money was deposited into the trust. $9 million was now safe from Ezra and Nell. Congratulations, Mr. Brooks, Goldstein said as we left the bank. Your assets are safe. What's next? Now we have to wait and see how your son reacts. If he does file for custody, we'll be ready. And the company? I still officially own it, though I sold it. That's not a problem. Pacific Freight will be announcing the purchase shortly. Until then, you can continue with your usual behavior. How long do I have to pretend? Not long. From what you tell me, your son and his wife are acting fast. I'd say it'll be over within a week or two. He was right. The next day when I arrived at the office, Doris met me with a worried look. "Mr. Brooks," your son called. "He said it was urgent." What exactly did he say? That he had some big news about the company, and that you need to get in touch with him right away. I chuckled. "Thank you, Doris. I'll call him later." In my office, Hayden was waiting for me with another report. He looked tense. "Mr. Brooks, there's something I need to tell you." "Go ahead." "Your son called me yesterday, asked about the company's financials, wanted to know if there was any sign of a pending sale." So Ezra was still gathering information. "And what did you tell him?" "The truth, that I didn't know of any plans to sell, but he was very insistent, said it was in your best interest." "My best interest?" I raised an eyebrow. "That's an interesting way of putting it." "He said you were," Hayden hesitated, "that you were unwell and needed help making important decisions." "And you believed him?" "No, sir. That's why I'm telling you this." I thought it was strange. "Thank you for your honesty, Hayden. I appreciate it." After he left, I called Ezra. "Dad, finally. I've been trying to reach you all day." "I had meetings. What's up?" "We need to talk. In person. It's about the company." "What's what?" "Not over the phone. When can we meet?" "I'm busy all week." "Dad, this is really important. I've gotten word that Pacific Freight is preparing a public announcement to buy your company. Is that true?" "Well, here's the thing. Somebody at Pacifica leaked it, or Ezra had sources in the industry." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Dad, please. No games. I'm trying to help." "Help with what exactly?" "Protecting your interests. If you really sold the company, we need to talk about how to handle the money, investments, tax planning." "Sounds like you already think of that money as your own." Pause. "Of course I don't. It's your money. I just want to help. If I need help, I'll go to a professional." "I am a professional, Dad. I've been working in investments for 10 years. And not once in 10 years has anyone taken an interest in my finances. And now all of a sudden you care so much." "You're being unfair. I've always taken care of you." "Have you? Give me the date of my birth." Silence. Then an uncertain answer. "November 3rd or 4th. October 7th. But thanks for trying." "Dad, it's not fair. I just forgot the date. It doesn't mean I don't care about you." "Ezra, I don't have time for this. If Pacific Freight announces something, you'll know about it along with everyone else." "So it's true? You sold the company?" "I don't comment on market rumors." "Dad, please. We're a family. We need to stick together." "Family? Since when?" "For the last 15 years, you've visited me 3 times a year. Thanksgiving, Christmas, and my birthday, which you can't even get right." "People change. I've changed. I'm sorry, but I gotta go. I have a meeting." I hung up the phone, feeling both angry and strangely satisfied at the same time. For the first time in years, I could talk to my son honestly without trying to maintain the appearance of a normal relationship. It was liberating. That evening, I got a text from Goldstein. His source at the court said that Ezra had indeed filed a petition to have me declared incompetent. The court hearing was scheduled for next week. We only had a few days to prepare. I decided it was time to move to the safe house the lawyer had mentioned. I packed the essentials, clothes, medication, papers, and left without leaving a note. Let Ezra worry when he couldn't find me. The safe house turned out to be a cozy suburban home owned by a client of Goldstein's who traveled frequently. A state-of-the-art security system, a complete absence of neighbors, and every amenity one could wish for. Here I could wait quietly for the denouement. Over the next few days, Ezra and Nell literally flooded me with calls and messages. I didn't answer. Goldstein reported that they even contacted the police to report me missing. The police contacted a lawyer and he confirmed that I was fine and hiding of my own free will. And then the news broke. Pacific Freight Systems officially announced that it had purchased Brooks Transit Solutions for $9 million, a deal that had been finalized 2 weeks ago. My phone was flooded with calls from journalists, partners, employees, and of course, Ezra. I decided to take his call. "Daddy, is it true? You really sold the company?" "Yes, Ezra, I did." "Why didn't you tell me? I'm your son." "That's exactly why." "What? What are you talking about?" "I know about your plans, Ezra. How you and Nell wanted to put me in a cheap nursing home. How you were going to get custody so you could control my money." Silence. Then, "That's not true. Who told you that?" "No one. I heard your conversation in the kitchen myself. The night you found me sleeping on the couch." "Dad, you've got it wrong. We never—" "No more lies, Ezra. I know the truth. And I know about the statement you filed with the court." Pause again. "It's for your own good. You're sick, Dad. You need help. The only thing I need is for you to leave me alone. You won't get the money from the sale of the company. It's already in a trust that's not available to you or the courts." "What? You can't do that." "I already did, and I rewrote the will. You and Nell are disinherited. Dad, please, let's meet. Let's have a quiet talk." "It's too late, Ezra. You've made your choice and I've made mine. Where are you?" "I'll be there. We'll talk about it." "No, no more discussion. I'll see you in court." I hung up and turned off the phone. A strange sense of freedom swept over me. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly independent, not bound by the company or by false family ties. The $9 million in the trust account gave me the opportunity to live my remaining months the way I wanted. No compromises, no lies, no pretense. The disease was progressing. The attacks became more frequent and more severe. But now I had freedom, financial and emotional, and I intended to make the most of it in the short time I had left. The court hearing was held 8 days after the sale of the company was announced. Ezra showed up with 2 lawyers and Dr. Whitmore, the very specialist Nell had recommended. I came with Goldstein and an independent psychiatrist, Dr. Rosenthal. The case was heard not by Judge Burns, a friend of Nell's father, but by Judge Carlson, an older woman with a penetrating gaze and a reputation for incorruptibility. Apparently, Burns preferred to recuse himself from the case when he learned that I had hired one of the best attorneys in town. The session was short and, for Ezra, humiliating. Goldstein presented Dr. Rosenthal's medical report confirming my full capacity. He then told the court about the trust into which the money from the sale of the company had been transferred and the new will. "Your Honor," Goldstein said, "not only is my client fully competent, but he took all necessary steps to protect his assets before his son filed this frivolous petition. Mr. Brooks was aware that his son, who had shown no interest in his life for 15 years, was suddenly interested in his finances after the sale of the company." Ezra sat stone-faced, but I could see his hands twitching. Nell, sitting next to him, went pale. When it was Ezra and his lawyer's turn, they tried to portray me as a sick old man, unable to make important decisions. Dr. Whitmore read a report of my progressive cognitive disorder and paranoid tendencies. "My father refuses medical attention," Ezra said. "He's becoming increasingly suspicious, accusing me and my wife of non-existent conspiracies. We just want to help him." Judge Carlson listened intently to both sides, then recessed for a decision. 30 minutes later, she returned to the courtroom. "I have carefully reviewed all the documents presented and listened to the arguments of the parties," she said. "Based on the medical reports and my own observation of Mr. Brooks in the courtroom, I find no basis for finding him incompetent. Mr. Ezra Brooks' application is denied." Ezra jumped up. "Your Honor, this is a mistake. My father is seriously ill." "Mr. Brooks, sit down," the judge said sternly. If you have any new evidence of your father's incapacity, you may refile. In the meantime, this case is closed." As we were leaving the courtroom, Ezra tried to catch up with me. "Dad, wait. We need to talk." I stopped and turned to him. "About what, Ezra? About how you tried to take away my freedom?" "None of that was true. We really wanted to help. By sending me to a cheap nursing home? By taking control of my money? Is that what you call helping?" Nell came over to us, her eyes glistening with tears. Probably fake tears. "Killian, please. You've got it all wrong. We never talked about a cheap nursing home. We were just discussing options if you needed help." "I heard your conversation, Nell." Verbatim. "Sunset Valley is a cheap nursing home in the suburbs. Why waste money on a luxury facility? He won't appreciate the difference in his condition anyway." She turned even paler. I didn't mean that." "Of course not," I grinned. "You never mean anything like that." Goldstein touched my shoulder. "Mr. Brooks, we should go. The driver's waiting." "Yeah, sure." Ezra grabbed my hand. "Dad, please, let's talk. Not here, not now. Come over for dinner Friday night. Just you and me, without Nell if you want. I've been thinking. Why not? It was a good chance to set the record straight." "All right. 7 p.m. Your house." "Thanks, Dad. You won't regret it." "We'll see." Friday night, I arrived at Ezra's house in the suburbs of Los Angeles, a large colonial-style mansion, the result of a successful career as a financial analyst and realtor at a high-end agency, or perhaps the result of expecting an inheritance from me. Ezra opened the door himself. He was dressed in a simple shirt and jeans unusual for him. He usually favored suits, even at home. "Dad, come in. I'm so glad you came." I walked into the spacious hallway. The house was tastefully decorated, probably Nell's work. "Nell's not here?" I asked, looking around. "No, just like you wanted, just you and me." We went into the dining room. The table was set for two, candles burning. A bottle of whiskey, my favorite, stood in the center. "Sit down, please," Ezra pointed to a chair. "I made steaks. I remember you always liked good meat." I sat down, surprised by this concern. Perhaps he really wanted to make up? Or was this just another ploy? Ezra poured me a whiskey and himself. "What shall we drink to?" he asked. "To the truth." He nodded, though there was a flicker of concern in his eyes. "To the truth." We drank. The whiskey was good, expensive, aged. "Dad, I want to apologize," Ezra began, "for everything that happened, for the trial, for those charges. I really thought I was doing the right thing." "Right for who, Ezra? For me or for yourself?" He lowered his eyes. "I was worried about you. You started acting weird, taking some kind of medication, and then suddenly you sold the company without telling anyone. Why would I tell you? You were never interested in the company." "That's not true. I've always been proud of your accomplishments." "Proud enough that I didn't even know how many terminals or trucks I had." Ezra sighed. "I know I wasn't the best son. After my mom died, I became distant. It's been hard for me." "It's been hard for me too, Ezra. I lost my wife, but I didn't turn my back on you. No, you just tried to force me to be a copy of you. You never took my decisions, my interests. An old grudge has resurfaced. We've been down this road many times before. I wanted you to be a part of the cause I created. I wanted you to continue what I started, but you chose a different path, and I accepted it." "You did?" "You stopped talking to me for a year when I told you I wouldn't work for the company." "That's not true. I was disappointed, yes, but I never stopped communicating." Ezra shook his head. "Never mind. That's all in the past. I want to talk about the present, about what's happening right now." "Okay, let's talk about the present. About you and Nell planning to put me in a cheap nursing home." "Dad, I swear I never agreed to that." "Yeah. Nell talked about Sunset Valley, but I said we'd find something better. But the very idea of sending me to a nursing home was something you supported." He was quiet. "Yes, Because I thought you were sick and needed care. I didn't know you had cancer. I raised my eyebrows. And now you do? Goldstein said in court. Stage 4, huh? Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? Or did you think it was another sign of my paranoia? Ezra lowered his head. I would have believed it. And I would have helped. You're my father, damn it. I'm surprised you're only remembering that now, with the company sold and the money out of your reach. It's not about the money. It's not. What were you and Nell talking about in the kitchen? About the house in Malibu, about traveling, about how you'd handle my millions. Ezra jumped up. It was Nell, not me. She's obsessed with money, status, all that crap. And you just listened and agreed. I was weak. I admit that. But I never meant to hurt you. I looked at my son, a grown man who now looked like a scared boy. Perhaps there was some truth in what he said. Perhaps Nell really was the driving force behind this whole plan. But that didn't absolve Ezra of his responsibility. I believe you didn't mean to hurt me, I said finally. But you let it happen. You betrayed me, Ezra. And it wouldn't be the first time. What do you mean? Remember when you were 22? You took money out of my safe to pay off a gambling debt. He went pale. Did you know? Of course I knew. I've always counted money accurately. $12,000 disappeared overnight. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because I was hoping you'd come clean, or at least return it. But you did neither. Ezra sat back down, his shoulders slumped. I was an idiot. I still am. Not an idiot, just a weak man. We sat in silence. I took another sip of whiskey, feeling the warmth spread through my body, a pleasant sensation that was becoming more and more rare lately. What now? Ezra finally asked. Now I tell you what's really going on. The whole truth, Ezra, the whole truth, Ezra. I took a deep breath and began. I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer, metastasized to my liver and lungs. I have 6 to 8 months to live, maybe less. The disease is progressing faster than the doctors expected. Ezra's gone pale. Treatment? There's no point. The odds are minimal, and the side effects will make the remaining time unbearable. Dad, I didn't know. I found out about the diagnosis the day before you and Nell started showing such sudden concern. Funny coincidence, don't you think? It really is a coincidence. Nell heard from her client that Pacific Freight was interested in your company. We thought we should help you with the sale. Help me or help yourself? He didn't answer. The company sold for $9 million, I continued. The money's in a trust administered by Goldstein and his partner. I can use it while I'm alive, and when I die, it'll go toward a scholarship fund and pancreatic cancer research. You didn't leave us anything? Why should I? For 15 years of neglect? For trying to put me in a nursing home? I am your son. Only by blood, Ezra, only by blood. He stood up and walked back to the window, his back turned to me. His shoulders were shaking. Whether he was crying or angry, I couldn't tell. What are you going to do now? He asked without turning around. Live. The short time I have left. I bought a ticket for a trip around the world. I've always wanted to see the world, but never had the time. Now I have time and money. When are you leaving? Tomorrow. I'll start with Japan. Then China, India, Europe. Alone. Yeah, it's easier that way. Ezra finally turned around. His eyes were red. I could come with you, at least part of the way. I shook my head. No, Ezra, this is a journey I must make alone. You really won't forgive me? Not even now? I wondered. Forgive Ezra? After everything he'd done? After betraying me, lying to me, trying to take away my freedom? I don't hold a grudge against you, Ezra. I really don't. But I have nothing to forgive you for. You made your choices. I made mine. We're just going our separate ways. That's it? 15 years of Cold War and now you're just leaving? What did you expect? A tearful reconciliation? A hug? We stopped being a real family a long time ago. No need to pretend now. Ezra came closer. I'm not pretending. I'm really sorry about what happened. the way things turned out between us. Me too, Ezra. Believe me, me too. We stared at each other, two strangers, bound only by blood and a bitter past. The steaks will get cold, he finally said. I'm not hungry. Drugs kill the appetite. Another whiskey at least? I can do that. He poured us both a drink. We drank in silence. Not for anything in particular, just because it was probably the last time we'd ever sit like this, just the two of us. If you change your mind about the will, Ezra started. I raised my hand, stopping him. Don't ruin the moment, Ezra. He nodded. I'm sorry. I finished my whiskey and stood up. I should get going. There's an early flight tomorrow. Will you let me know where you are, in case something happens? Goldstein will know. He'll contact you if he needs to. Ezra walked me to the door. He hugged me awkwardly for the first time in years. Goodbye, Dad. I'm sorry for everything. Goodbye, Ezra. Take care of yourself. I went outside. The night was warm and clear. The stars shone brightly in the California sky. I inhaled deeply, feeling strangely light. All was said, all masks removed. No obligations, no expectations. Just me and my own path. Getting into the car, I took one last look at Ezra's house. He was still standing in the doorway watching me. I raised my hand in a parting gesture and started the engine. I had a new day ahead of me and a new life, albeit a short one, but finally, truly mine. I pulled onto the road without looking back. Some bonds can't be repaired, some wounds can't heal. Sometimes the best thing to do is just keep moving forward. At dawn, I boarded a plane bound for Tokyo. My final journey was beginning, a journey to freedom, to peace with myself. No company, no family obligations, no lies or pretenses. Just me, my memories, and the time that was slipping away like sand through my fingers. But now every grain of sand mattered. Every moment was truly mine.